Here are 4 suburbs of Atlanta that are perfect for families. In coming up with the criteria and what would make a perfect family suburb, I kind of came up with a few factors that I think are super important to families. Things like low crime and excellent public schools and affordability and making sure that the commute would not be very far to work. So these are all the things that I think are super important to families, certainly something that's very important to me and my family. And so these suburbs are all the ones that I think do the best at having all of those factors. Now, some of them kind of do better than others, but let's talk about these 4 suburbs that are perfect for families. What's up, y'all? My name is Victor with Atlanta Suburban Living. We put out videos every week about what it's like to live in Atlanta and the suburbs of Atlanta. The first city suburb of Atlanta that I think is perfect for families is Marietta. Marietta is in the Cobb County, kind of northwest part of Metro Atlanta. And the reason why I think it's perfect for families, well, there's multiple reasons. One of those is certainly going to be the public school ratings. If you look at niche.com is one of these websites that does the school ratings. The school rating for Marietta and Cobb County in general is an A. And so they have A minus, A plus, B, C, D, all of those things. Marietta is right there at the very top, not quite an A plus, but they certainly are an A in Marietta and around Marietta. In general, the city of Marietta has lots of families living here. I would say this is probably the most common demographic in Marietta. I live in Marietta as well, actually. And so certainly lots of families here. Another big reason why we have so many families here is because there's very little crime. Now, it's kind of difficult to say what the crime rate is because if you look at multiple sources for the crime rate, you'll get 100 different answers for what the crime rate is. It's very hard to tell, but I actually found a great website recently for looking at like the crime in different areas, different parts of the country. The website was called crimegrade.org, and they've got a map, and it's kind of like this heat map, and it's like green in the areas that are super safe and yellow in the areas that are kind of, and then the red areas that are like you might want to stay away from. And so while I found this map to be very helpful, and certainly Marietta was mostly green, gotta keep in mind that this website is mostly sponsored by like security system companies. And so naturally they're gonna kind of skew this a little bit to make it look like you need a security system. So just keep that in mind, but overall it was very helpful. Another big reason why so many families choose Marietta is the home prices. In the last 3 months, the average sold price for a home in Marietta has been $540,000. And so you can find homes as low as about $400,000 and certainly higher than $1 million, but the average is right there about $540,000. And then in addition to that, it has to really do with like the home sizes. And so you have a lot of homes here in Marietta that are right around 2,500 square feet, 4-bed, 3-bath home, around 500,000. This is a very common kind of house numbers that we see here in Marietta. And so you have the excellent schools, the low crime, and the homes that are relatively affordable. These are all great reasons why Marietta is one of the best suburbs of Atlanta for families. When it comes to things to do in and around Marietta, we have the Battery. The Battery is at like the intersection of Interstate 75 and 285. And this is where the Atlanta Braves stadium is. But more than that, this is also like one of these mixed use areas where they have condos and townhomes and great restaurants and shops. And my kids love going there and playing there. My wife and I love going there as well. But the kids especially like going to like the splash pad that they have there. You know, one of those things where like the water jets out of the ground and the kids run around there and play. Like there's always kids out there on the splash pad at the Battery. There's also Kennesaw Mountain. It's not necessarily in Marietta, but Kennesaw Mountain is in Kennesaw. And it's near Marietta, and it's a great place to get out, go for a hike. There are miles and miles of hiking trails around Kennesaw Mountain. Also, Marietta Square is a great thing. Like when you're looking for places to go, things to do, Marietta Square is an excellent option right in the middle of the city of Marietta. Shops and restaurants, a lot of locally owned shops and restaurants too. You're not looking like at a lot of chain restaurants there. There are a lot of big box stores, Walmart, Home Depot, all of that stuff is here in Marietta, but in the city center, of Marietta, you're looking at a lot more locally owned shops. Another big factor for family perfect suburbs are going to be healthcare, making sure that we have enough healthcare. We don't want to go an hour or 30 minutes away to an emergency room if one of the kids has an issue. So Kennestone, in fact, it's called Wellstar Kennestone, is the closest emergency room to Marietta. Depending on where in Marietta you are, I would say it's about 20 minutes at the farthest point to get to Kennestone. You could obviously be really close to Kennestone, and it's a 5-minute drive to Kennestone, but that's like one of the best hospitals in all of Georgia, actually, and it's right there in Marietta. And then naturally all around that hospital are a bunch of doctors' offices. So plenty of healthcare providers there in and around Wellstar Kennestone. And then lastly, a big factor when it comes to these perfect suburbs for families is going to be outdoor green space, playgrounds, things like that. Really quick, Marietta's got plenty of parks all around there. Shaw Park, Swift Cantrell Park, East Cobb Park are all in and around Marietta. And then I can't forget Lake Allatoona. Lake Allatoona is not in Marietta, but I live in Marietta and I often drive to Lake Allatoona. It's about 20 minutes away, maybe 30 minutes away to get to the lake. And this is one of the biggest lakes in all of Georgia. So lots of activities there. Hiking trails, fishing, swimming, boating, lots of outdoor things to do at Lake Allatoona. Suburb number 2 that is perfect for families is Powder Springs. If you plan on moving to any one of these suburbs, or you just have any questions about what it's like to live here, feel free to call, text, or email me anytime. I'm a local real estate agent here in the Metro Atlanta area, and I'd be happy to help with your moving needs. Even if you just have a question, I'm happy to help. Call me, text me, email me anytime. Thank you so much to everybody who has reached out. I'm always happy to help. But Powder Springs is mostly in Cobb County, and it is a perfect suburb for families. One of the best things about Powder Springs is its affordability. The average home price there in Powder Springs is around $400,000 for a home, but you can certainly find homes even lower, even in the low 300s for a home. And so you have excellent public schools in Powder Springs. The niche.com rating there is an A-. The crime rate there is very, very low. Again, you can check that out on the website. And in general, there are lots of families living in Powder Springs for these very things. You've got the low crime, the excellent schools, and the affordability. Now, we really need to talk about that because this is a combination that is very hard to find in many parts of Metro Atlanta, if in fact anywhere else in Metro Atlanta. In general, when you have an area that has excellent schools and low crime and it's super nice, the home prices are very high. You know, like you can certainly find all of those things in Alpharetta or in Canton, but those home prices in those really nice suburbs are very high. 7, 8, 900,000 for a home. So to be able to find the excellent schools and the low crime and the super nice family friendly suburb for 300,000 for a home, man, in my opinion, that is where it's at. That's the deal that new residents to Metro Atlanta should be looking for. Powder Springs, for that reason, in my opinion, is perfect for families. You don't have to break the bank, and you're getting all of those things that you find in the nice suburbs. Many of the people who live in Powder Springs often work in one of the bigger cities close by Powder Springs. Maybe Marietta, that's got plenty of economy, plenty of industry for lots of jobs. And then also the Cumberland area right there where the Battery is, that area of 75 and 285, that intersection also has lots of job employers, industry, economy, all of that right around there. Powder Springs is not really a suburb where I would expect a lot of people to work. I mean, obviously there's like grocery stores and different things like that, lots of retail around there. But when it comes to the majority of employers, most people who live in Powder Springs commute 30 to 45 minutes to get to work in one of those other nearby bigger cities. And then when it comes to hospital healthcare providers, the same goes for Powder Springs as for Marietta. Wellstar Kennestone is the closest one. Instead of a 20-minute drive, though, you're looking at a 30-minute drive to get to Kennestone. But lots of medical providers all around Powder Springs. There are like doctors' offices, certainly plenty of doctors' offices, pediatricians, regular primary care doctors there in Powder Springs. But when it comes to the emergency room, though, that would still be Kennestone if you're living in Powder Springs. Springs. And then for parks and green space, lots of options for Powder Springs as well. Lost Mountain Park, Oregon Park, in and around Powder Springs. And then of course, Silver Comet Trail. This is a great option for many of the residents of Powder Springs. The Silver Comet Trail is like a paved trail that kind of goes through the woods mostly, but it's the fact that it's paved makes it much easier to walk on, jogging, riding a bicycle on. This is very common in Powder Springs to find the Silver Comet Trail, and it is miles long. And so certainly a very popular part of living in Powder Springs. The third city when it comes to the Atlanta suburbs that are perfect for families, in my opinion, is Johns Creek. This one is one of the most popular, if not the most popular suburb for families. The school ratings in Johns Creek are an A+, the best of the best. The crime in Johns Creek is almost non-existent. I mean, like many suburbs have, some kind of crime. Like you're always going to find some kind of petty crimes in most of the suburbs. But man, Johns Creek is like almost no crime. I mean, obviously nobody's going to say that there's no crime in Johns Creek, but dude, there's like very little to no crime in Johns Creek. It's one of the safest suburbs in all of Georgia. Johns Creek is in Fulton County, and it's just east of Alpharetta. In fact, most of Johns Creek used to be Alpharetta, but Johns Creek kind of annexed themselves decades ago. And so Johns Creek is now working on things like a city center, and they're kind of doing a lot of development. They always have done a lot of development in Johns Creek in that area, but this is certainly one of the best suburbs for families, one of the nicest suburbs as well. But what you get with the super excellent public schools, the low crime, the nice area, is the home prices that are a bit higher. The average home price in Johns Creek in the last 3 months has been $800,000, but this is one of the most desirable suburbs to live in, and certainly a great part of Metro Atlanta. For the homes in Johns Creek, you're looking at typically about 3,500 to 4,000 square feet for the homes there. There are some new construction homes, but I'd say a lot of the homes there are like early 2000s-ish, around that age. And then when it comes to healthcare, emergency room, the closest emergency room there is going to be Wellstar North Fulton on Highway 9. I believe it's in Roswell, but it's just south of Alpharetta, right there between Roswell and Alpharetta, Highway 9. Again, that's Wellstar North Fulton, and there are lots of doctors, lots of medical providers around that hospital. There's like a whole medical complex park around there as well. So plenty of healthcare options for the residents of Johns Creek. And then many of the people who live in Johns Creek, they tend to work in cities like Alpharetta, possibly Johns Creek as well. There's quite a bit of industry economy there in Johns Creek. But what is also very common is some of these cities that are close to Interstate 285. Very often the residents of Johns Creek drive to those suburbs. Sandy Springs, Norcross, Dunwoody, around there is a very common place for residents of Johns Creek to drive for work. And then also lots of parks there in Johns Creek as well. Jones Bridge Park, Shake Rag Park, and Aubrey Mill. So plenty of parks and green space for the residents of Johns Creek. And then the fourth suburb that is absolutely perfect for families in Metro Atlanta is going to be Suwanee. Suwanee's in Gwinnett County. A+ schools, no crime, average home price of like $500,000, so far more affordable than Johns Creek, a little more than Powder Springs, but it's right there in the happy medium. $500,000 for like a 2,500, 3,000 square foot home. Lots of families living in Suwanee as well. This is definitely going to be one of the best suburbs for families. The closest hospital there is going to be Gwinnett Medical Center. And then when it comes to things to do, Suwanee has an excellent downtown city center area. It's called Town Center at Suwanee, and it's already big. They got a big amphitheater and a big field and lots of shops and restaurants, and they've just finished like a second phase of Town Center Suwanee. So there are lots of things to do there. So Suwanee is certainly one of the best suburbs for families. If you want more information about the city of Suwanee, like the pros and the cons of living in Suwanee, you can check out that video right here. I'll see you in the next one.